UFC press conferences absolutely suck now. I've personally worked as media at a couple of these press conferences, so I've got a little bit more insight. So this is why I think they've really gone downhill and how to fix them. The most recent press conference I was working at was UFC 308 in Abu Dhabi. Had the opportunity to meet and interview a lot of the fighters there, and it's really interesting to see how it all operates behind the scenes. To kick it off, I just got back from my visa. I was out there looking for Conor McGregor because I saw he just got into a fight with a fan. I was trying to bring him back to the UFC, man, because I feel like this is the biggest thing we're lacking at the moment. We're missing people that have charisma on the microphone. We're missing people that know how to build a storyline. And that's the number one thing I think made these press conferences was genuine beef, and also the UFC promoting these storylines. Nowadays, when we get these press conferences, we get the same old questions from the same old media. How do you think this fight's going to go? Well, obviously they think they're going to win. In the past, when I've worked at these UFC events, the way they organize these press conferences is there's usually one or two people from a bunch of different media outlets, and there's usually one UFC staff that will assign priority to specific media. For example, Oscar Willis tends to go first, I think just because he's quite notable. Same with John Morgan, he'll usually go first. And there isn't always time for all of the media to ask their questions. If I'm being completely honest, I think the UFC media tends to be a little bit timid because they're afraid of saying the wrong thing, asking the wrong questions, and potentially getting their media pass revoked. Because when you apply for a media pass at the UFC, it goes through a lengthy sort of application process, and you never know, if you tip the wrong person off, you might not get the chance to go. For whatever reason, I feel like Dana White lately has not had as much passion or interest in the UFC, and when you look at it, he was always the driving force behind building these big fights, these big moments, whereas now we get a Derek Lewis main event at a fight night in 2025. I would say one of the biggest things as well is, like, sometimes when you go to these foreign countries, like when you're in the UAE or you're in Baku or places that aren't America, basically, you tend to get media outlets that come to these press conferences that are asking questions about a specific fighter, and they're not even really there to ask a question. They're more so there as a fan and to get an interaction with their favorite fighter. You saw at the most recent UFC event, even though that was in America, because Ilia Topuria, a Spanish guy, was headlining the fight, you got a ton of Spanish media outlets coming to the fight, pretty much just to glaze Topuria and not even ask real questions. Like, there were some really dumb questions in those press conferences, and they're just chatting to him like they're friends. It's like, bro, what are you doing? I don't think it's so much the athletes themselves. I think sometimes they can be a bit robotic if you're someone like Peyton Talbot or you're someone like Bo Nickel, kind of giving monotone, boring answers. But for the most part, I would have to place the blame on the media. I think sometimes in these cases, the media might not actually care about the sport, or the ones that do care about the sport are a little bit too afraid to ask the good questions. As much as Dana White hates him, Ariel Helwani did a ton for the sport. In my opinion, he was probably one of the best things to happen to MMA media, especially because he kind of towed the line and would ask those questions that people are afraid to ask, which I think gave the fire to a lot of the biggest fights that we've seen. Even though Dana would hate that and would call it instigating, I guess in a sense it is, but it's what makes the sport exciting. Would you rather have questions that Ariel asks, or the same old question, how do you feel for this fight? One thing I think the UFC can do that will bring a lot of excitement to these press conferences is to maybe add a segment at the end of fan questions. I think the way that you could do that as well is maybe to weed out the, the people there just to troll or just to promote, is maybe by charging people to be in a VIP section where at the end of the conference they get to ask a question to the fighters, basically, or to Dana White. Because like I said, they would have nothing to lose. They're not there with a media pass, so they can ask genuine questions that the fans want to know. A lot of the UFC media have kind of lost touch with what the fans actually care about. So I think giving the fans the floor to ask these questions will make all the difference. Like I said, have the media go first and then have a fan section at the end. I'm pretty sure the UFC used to do this as well. I don't know why they stopped. Just charge a VIP price so it weeds out the people that aren't there to ask like actual questions. It's also really interesting, like the press conferences lately have been literally like 20-30 minutes at most, where back in the day they used to be like minimum 40 minutes. And you can kind of see in the past few press conferences, Dana has wanted to leave. And bro, every time I swear there's a question that Dana doesn't want to answer, he always says, what was the question? I remember at a press conference that I asked him a question, I got really nervous and I kind of fumbled my question and he had to get someone to translate it for him. It also definitely comes down to the UFC matchmaking. We need to see the fights that are genuine rivalries, like Diego Lopez and Yair Rodriguez, Michael Chandler, Conor McGregor, John Jones versus Tom Aspinall. I think these will make really good press conference moments, but we have a Derek Lewis main event this weekend to look forward to. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure you guys do drop a like. Make sure to subscribe as well, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.